Our project focuses on a gap we see in kindergarten classrooms, where there isn't enough intentional time or space for children to regulate their emotions. Students are often in fast paced, overstimulating environments with limited time built in for social emotional regulation. Where and why is this happening? This issue is happening in kindergarten classrooms within public school boards across Ontario. These environments are filled with large class sizes and are highly structured with frequent transitions and wide range of needs. Because of this, it can be difficult for educators to find the time to support emotional regulation in a meaningful way. The gap and problems. What we're seeing in kindergarten classrooms across Ontario is more focus on routines and curriculums. This is leaving limited time for social emotional regulation, and emotional needs are often overlooked. According to How Does Learning Happen? Well being is a key foundation for learning, highlighting the importance of supporting emotional regulation in classroom environments. Impacts on kindergarten children. When children don't have enough support to regulate, it can show up in different ways like frustration, withdrawal, or difficulty focusing. Over time, this can impact their relationships, participation, and how safe and supported they feel in the classroom. For developing self awareness, it's important to help children recognize their emotional reactions. We can do this by asking simple questions like, "What are you feeling? And why do you feel that way?" We also want to help them notice physical changes in their body, like a fast heartbeat or tense muscles. This helps children better understand their emotions, which is the first step towards self regulation.
Good morning. I will be talking about the gaps and barriers that we can see. So, when we start, let's start by picturing a typical classroom. When you walk in, and what do you see? We can see a transitions which is too loud and busy hallways. So, for most of us, this is just the normal background noise of a school. But for many children, this environment doesn't feel normal. It feels overwhelming. When sensory input, things like noise, visual clutter, crowds, exceeds a child's ability to process it, we see something called sensory overload. And when a child is overloaded, their brain goes into a state of emotional dysregulation. That means they lost the ability to calmly manage the emotions and reaction. Now, dysregulation doesn't look the same for every child. It can show up in two main ways. On one hand, you might see internalized behavior. These are the quiet struggle, a child who withdraws, put their heads down, become anxious, or stop participating. On the other hand, you might see externalized behavior. These are the loud struggles, tantrums, aggressions, and restlessness. Research shows that about 16.5% of elementary school students, roughly 1 in 6, are highly sensitive to multiple sensory stimuli. These children are at a significant higher risk of emotional and behavioral challenges. So now the question becomes, if 1 in 6 children is struggling with sensory overload, how are schools responding? In the next slide, we are going to discuss about the availability of school support and teacher training. Support for emotional regulation in school is inconsistent. SEL programs are often used for behavior management, not genuine emotional support. For example, a teacher tells a dysregulated child, "Go use your breathing tube." The child calms down and returns to work. The behavior is managed, but the underlying emotions was never addressed. The biggest issue is teacher training. It rarely focuses on co-regulation, using a calm presence to help a child regulate. Instead, SEL programs place the burden of emotional control on the child without giving teachers the relational skills to guide them. Without co-regulation training, emotional difficulties get treated as misbehavior. A child who is overwhelmed gets consequence instead of helps, creating a cycle of stress for both child and teacher. Without environmental adjustment, overstimulated children stay in chronic stress, unable to learn. This matters because regulation predicts academic success, even beyond behavior or relationship. What needs to change? Reduce sensory overload, teach regulation skills explicitly, train teachers in co regulation.
Our group created an innovation called the Emotional Echo Block Feelings That Talk Back. This is designed to support children's emotional well being in kindergarten. Children interact with a responsive wall or projection screen that reflects the group's emotional energy. When movement is fast or overwhelming, the visuals become chaotic. As children begin to calm down and regulate, the environment shifts into soft and soothing visuals. This helps children see and understand their emotions in real time. This block would run for about 25 minutes daily and is built into the classroom routine. It supports well being by promoting emotional safety, building self regulation through experience, encouraging co regulation with peers, and validating children's emotions. It also aligns with How Does Learning Happen by supporting well being, belonging, engagement, and expression. Ontario Ministry of Education 2014. This innovation is used by kindergarten students to develop self regulation, focus, and social emotional well being. Educators will support this by observing, guiding, and helping children reflect on their emotions. The goal is to help children develop emotional regulation skills, improve focus, build positive social skills, and create a safe, supportive classroom environment. Overall, this innovation shifts the focus from managing behavior to supporting children's overall health and well being.
Our innovation improves children's well being by supporting their emotional regulation. In many kindergarten classrooms, children move quickly from one activity to another without enough time to process their emotions. This can lead to stress and difficulty managing feelings. By introducing decompression spaces and mindful time, children are given opportunities to pause, reflect, and calm themselves. Research shows that mindfulness practices improve children's social behavior and emotional regulation, helping them manage stress more effectively. This also connects to How Does Learning Happen, which explains that children need to feel emotionally secure and be able to self regulate in order to learn. How it improves classroom environments. This innovation also improves the overall classroom environment. When children are given time to decompress, classrooms become calmer and less overwhelming. This leads to fewer behavioral challenges and smoother transitions throughout the day. Children are able to interact more positively with peers and educators when they feel emotionally supported. This aligns with the ELECT framework, which emphasizes the importance of responsive environments and relationships in supporting children's development. Overall, this innovation works because it's supported by both research and early childhood frameworks. Mindfulness practice helps improve emotional regulation and social behavior in young children. Frameworks like How Does Learning Happen highlight that well being is a foundation for learning, meaning children learn best when they feel calm, safe, and supported. By giving children time to regulate their emotions, we are creating a more positive, responsive, and effective learning environment. Some of the key takeaways and our goals. Providing time for emotional regulation leads to improved well being, better behavior, stronger learning outcomes, benefits both children and educators, and a much more calmer classroom.
For implementation, we would start by looking at what the program already has, such as space, materials, and daily routines. Instead of making big changes right away, educators can begin with small adjustments like rearranging the classroom or using existing materials to create climbing areas. In terms of funding, programs can apply for support through CWELCC or local grants, but this innovation is also designed to work with low-cost options. Research shows that sustainable early childhood practice often build on existing community resource rather than relying on only fundings. Educators play a key role in making this innovation successful. They would need training on emotional regulation, co-regulation, and mindfulness strategies, such as deep breathing or calming routines. This helps ensure that decompression space are used to support children, not only as a form of punishment. At the same time, the physical environment should be intentionally designed to feel calm and safe. Simple elements like soft lighting, sensory materials, and visual supports can help children better understand and regulate their emotions. Partnerships with families and community organizations are also very important. Educators can share strategy with families like breathing techniques or climbing routines so children receive consistent support at home and in the classroom. In addition, working with community service such as early on centers or mental health supports can provide extra resources and knowledge. This kind of collaboration helps create a stronger support system for children's emotional well-being.
We know that every meaningful innovation in the classroom faces obstacles. In fact, introducing new digital tools into early childhood education often brings up valid concerns about whether the technology might be viewed as an intrusion or a threat to traditional play based practices. To ensure the emotional echo block is successful, we have proactively identified five key challenges we will need to navigate: staff uncertainty, inadequate teacher training, budget limitations, spatial restrictions, and finally, policy restrictions and curriculum alignment. More importantly, we will outline our strategic solutions for each, ensuring that this innovation remains both realistic and highly sustainable. Now, let's look at our first major challenge: staff uncertainty. It is completely normal for early childhood teachers to feel anxious or skeptical about introducing new technology into their classrooms. Many teachers hold a deep, valid fear that the echo block might be a distraction or just a high tech toy that could disrupt established play based learning routines. Alongside this, educators frequently worry that over reliance on screens may reduce essential face to face interactions and hinder children's social and emotional development. Many educators may feel uncertain about whether the echo block truly supports play based learning or if it risks turning the classroom into a screen focused space, reducing authentic child adult interactions. We also have to consider internal beliefs. Research shows that a teacher's personal attitude towards technology strongly influences whether they will actually adopt it, even when the best resources are readily available. This uncertainty stems from deeply held pedagogical beliefs that technology can undermine the relationship centered environment emphasized in how does learning happen. In fact, a teacher's internal attitude towards a new tool is the single most important predictor of whether they will use it, even if you provide the best, most expensive equipment in the world. On top of that, trying to figure out new technology while managing a busy room filled with children can lead to anxiety and burnout. Integrating new technology often triggers complex emotional challenges for teachers, including intimidation and frustration. In many contexts, teachers may suppress these negative emotions to appear capable, which ultimately contributes to emotional exhaustion and limits their ability to build technological self efficacy. If these concerns are not addressed, ongoing anxiety and frustration can lead to burnout and the eventual abandonment of the tools altogether. However, this innovation is highly achievable because our solutions are proactive and focus on human support rather than just dropping devices in a room. First, our primary solution is to shift the mindset from viewing technology as just a tool to seeing it as a responsive environment. By framing the eco block as the third teacher, a well respected concept from Reggio Emilia and Ontario kindergarten frameworks, we can show our staff that this innovation does not replace their critical role. Instead, it supports their role by acting as an environmental co regulator that makes a child's invisible emotional energy visible. Second, we want to make this transition as realistic and sustainable as possible. Before the tool is ever introduced to the children, our educators will have hands on preview sessions and pressure free opportunities to ask questions. We will hold open house sessions where educators can interact with the wall themselves to directly experience its calming effects. By giving them this pressure free space to build confidence, we ensure that technology empowers our teachers rather than overwhelming them. Finally, we will utilize reflective pedagogical documentation sessions aligned with how does learning happen. By having teachers intentionally document how the children use the wall, staff will be able to observe children's increased self regulation and sense of belonging firsthand. Research shows that when educators observe their students experiencing success with a new tool, their skepticism and uncertainty effectively shift into confidence. Moving on to our second major challenge, inadequate teacher training. Even with the best technology, without proper training, an innovation can fail. Research shows that early childhood educators often do not receive structured training. Instead, they are given one time workshops that provide a certificate but very little ongoing support. Because of this, teachers can feel overwhelmed. They may know how to turn a device on, but they are unsure how to use it in a meaningful way with young children. Trying to navigate these new tools without proper preparation causes teachers to feel anxious, frustrated, and helpless, which lowers their confidence and makes them much less likely to use the technology. However, this challenge is completely solvable. To make our innovation successful, we are changing how we support our staff. First, we will move away from one time workshops and provide ongoing hands on learning. Second, we will introduce tech teaching coaches who will work directly with educators in their classrooms, helping them connect the technology to their daily teaching instead of just fixing technical issues. Finally, our training will focus on both teaching strategies and emotional support. By helping educators feel confident and supported, not just trained, we can ensure they successfully use technology in their everyday practice. One major challenge is budget limitations. Across the research, lack of funding is consistently identified as one of the biggest barriers to bringing new technology into early childhood classrooms. Limited funding restricts a school's access to basic infrastructure like reliable internet and modern devices. At the same time, the high cost of advanced tools such as projectors and sensors makes implementation even more difficult. These financial constraints also limit access to professional development and, in many cases, increase the personal burden on educators who use their own money to support classroom needs. Overall, these financial challenges widen resource inequities and deepen the digital divide for under resourced centers. However, with a strategic approach, this challenge can be addressed without relying only on traditional school budgets. First, we can leverage equipment leasing and targeted grants to reduce upfront costs and improve access to technology. Second, we can build public private partnership and collaborative networks. By forming alliances with regional centers, local tech companies, and community organizations, we can pool our resources, share equipment, and gain technical expertise that would be too expensive to acquire alone. It is also important to advocate for equitable funding models that direct resources to the areas that need them most. Finally, we can use a phased implementation approach. We will start with just one classroom to keep costs low and test how well the technology works. By keeping records of how it helps students learn and grow, we can show clear evidence to decision makers that it is worth investing in for more classrooms. Our fourth challenge is spatial restrictions. Sometimes the biggest barrier to introducing a new innovation isn't about attitudes or training, it's simply the physical space. Research shows that the learning environment itself can create challenges. Limited room size and lack of open space are common issues. In addition, many early childhood centers were not designed for modern technology, which leaves educators dealing with fixed layouts and limited access to electrical outlets. To address this, our solution focuses on flexible and dynamic use of space. The strength of the EcoBlock is that it requires absolutely no permanent space. It can be projected onto an existing classroom wall, used in a hallway during transitions, or mounted compactly in a corner. This aligns perfectly with early learning frameworks that promote adaptive environments, ensuring we meet students where they are and provide exactly what they need to feel safe and engaged. We also maximize space through a multifunctional design. When the Echo Block is not in active echo mode, it can display educational content or calming nature visuals. Research shows that connecting children to the natural world supports their emotional and mental well-being. By bringing these elements indoor, the Echo Block continues to support children's well-being in the background, making it an efficient and meaningful use of the classroom space. Right now, our educators and administrators are caught in the middle of conflicting expectations. On one hand, early learning frameworks encourage digital literacy, but on the other hand, pediatric guidelines tell them to strictly limit screen time. Because of fragmented regulatory frameworks, policymakers and health units strictly monitor device usage, and there's a real risk they may flag the echo block as excessive screen time or as replacing active play with passive screen viewing. At the same time, administrators have highly varied concerns about privacy. Recent research highlights that implementing AI and digital tools can pose significant ethical risks if children's personal data is collected or misused without meaningful protection. If we do not address these policy and safety concerns, the EcoBlock may not even be approved for use. So, our solution is to align the EcoBlock with what educators are already expected to do. We will not frame the EcoBlock as screen time. Instead, we will present it as a responsive environment and a pedagogical tool that supports children's emotional learning. We clearly show how the emotional echo block directly connects to the four foundations of Ontario's How Does Learning Happen framework: well being, belonging, engagement, and expression. In simple terms, this helps educators see that it is not something extra. It actually supports their everyday practice and helps children build emotional awareness. More importantly, we connected to Dr. Stuart Shanker's self regulation framework, which is the primary architecture used in Ontario schools. We can show policymakers that the Echo Block is an interactive tool that directly addresses Shanker's five domains of self regulation, especially the biological and emotional domains, by making children's invisible emotional energy visible so they can learn to manage it. Finally, we address privacy by using data minimization. The sensors of EchoBlock detect movement and energy without ever recording faces, voices, or storing identifiable child data. When educators and administrators see that the EchoBlock supports their goals, protect children's privacy, and fits within existing frameworks, they are much more likely to feel confident and support its use.